Okay, so thank you for having us. So this is a. Do you want to do that?
No, you can go ahead.
Okay. So this is a project that is made by ELF, the European Liberal Forum. We have representatives of parties, liberal parties from some Eastern countries, and then I will give the floor to them for a short introduction. It's a project that has different phases. We had a workshop in Krakow in August, and this is the second part of it with a study visit here in Italy, Milan and Turin. There is going to be a publication out, I guess, in 2 months, so by the end of the year.
Yes.
That will, condense all of the information and all of the exchanges that have been happening in these two projects. Then a few words for where we are. So here we are in a very historical, is it still the same, right? Yeah, in a very historical office of the Radicals, the Radical Party, and Più Europa. There are the two Liberal Party's members of ALDE. You have met already Radicals in Milan, and so you know a little bit about this party, and this is going to be like an occasion to get to know each other a bit more. So they met in Milan. They met Michele Usuelli, so they met kind of elected representative of our parties. Also, they had a meeting with Certi Diritti. Today they met Angelo Pezzana, so they had a meeting with the history of the Radical Party. Right? Angelo Pezzana is also part of the was also part of the Radical Party. And they didn't really manage to meet Enzo, but maybe he will join us tonight. I'm not entirely sure. So that's what it is. We can actually have a short round of introductions, starting from you.
Yes. Hello, I'm Michael from Warsaw, from Polska. I'm a sexuality educator and anti-discrimination trainer, and I work in Polska, which is a liberal think tank.
Yes, my name is Iga. I'm also from Polska, from Warsaw, and I'm dealing with within the think tank with the issues related to sexual education, which is a huge problem in Poland, and LGBT rights.
Hello, I am Eligius. I am a member of the Freedom Party in Lithuania. I work as an advisor to a chair of the Human Rights Committee in the Parliament, who works mostly with LGBT rights.
Hi, I'm Susanna. I'm from Slovakia. I'm a member of Progressive Slovakia, the political party, who's also a member of ALDE. And I work in the European Parliament as an assistant to a Slovak member in the European Parliament who is member of Renew Europe.
Hi, I'm Marta. I'm from Hungary. I'm a lawyer and one of the leaders of the LGBTQ group of the political party of Momentum.
Hello, I'm Patricia. I am the coordinator with him of this association, and we were so glad to meet you and to talk to you, because some situations about LGBT, dramatic situation in Poland, for example, as in Hungary, are not very talked about, but still on our news. But the situation in Slovakia and Lithuania and Latvia, we absolutely don't read anything about it. So to be able to talk to you about that situation in Eastern Europe for us is very, very precious, and so we're very glad that you found time on your tour to come here and talk to us.
Hello, thank you. I'm Silvia. I'm a former General Secretary of Italian Radicals Party, and
Ciao a tutti, io sono Daniele, sono coordinatore insieme a Patrizia e vi ringrazio per la vostra presenza e benvenuti.
Welcome.
Sono Giulio Manfredi, sono un membro di Radicali Italiani, un radicale di vecchia data.
Hi, I'm Chiara and I'm just
someone of the Radical Party.
No, she's the person that leads our web radio. She is especially interested in human rights, and she does like a really good job in getting informed. And here news are kind of not so good about like the outside from Italy. So it's basically, especially now with COVID, it has been COVID, and so like anything about the human rights outside Italy is not talked about.
So we have this little web radio that is RARA, it's an acronym, that is a radio of the Adelaide Aglietta Radical Association. This is the name of this association, and Adelaide Aglietta is that woman over there. And she's an activist from Turin, an historical part of the Radical Party. And we have this web radio, and with this radio we try to explain something and sharing information about something of also that kind of human rights, And I'm so glad that you are here with us. Thank you a lot.
My name is Igor Boni. I am the president of Italian Radicals, and I have been involved in politics from over 35 years in Turin.
I am Virginia Camoletto. I'm a member of the National Committee of Italian Radicals, and I'm really happy about this meeting because since I'm a law student, I'm studying the constitutions of Eastern Europe, and having this meeting is really helpful, also because I'm really interested in LGBT rights. Presentation.
Yes. I think the presentation of the partity.
Just on time. So my name is Miloš Hodun. I come from Poland. I'm a president of the Projekt Polska Foundation in Warsaw and a vice president of the European Liberal Forum, which is a think tank and a foundation of the ALDE party.
Thank you.
We know that we have somebody.
Yeah, no, like I would like to have just like a little bit of pieces of information about what's the situation like in your countries, and also you're very young people, so like if you have the feeling that that situation is going to change like in the years, like it's getting progressively on like in a good way, or if things are like getting worse or just not getting anywhere.
Does anyone want to start?
You already mentioned that you can read about the situation in Poland, but not the other countries. So maybe the other countries would be more interested for you to hear about. But just like to give you a view what is to briefly answer your question. In Poland, unfortunately, situations regarding LGBT plus rights is getting worse and worse every year, and it started the situation started to be like this when the current government won the elections for the first time. It's a rights wing party, Law and Justice, and they were first elected to form a government in 2015. So now they're ruling for the second term, and and this is how it looks in very general. Maybe you would like to add something and elaborate, or
the new idea is to forbid prides in Poland. That's a new proposal, and talk about in Poland right now. So the situation is very bad.
Yeah. And what about like, do young people start to get that? Like, is there a public opinion that is aware of the fact that the government is like that and the situation of the LGBT community is like that?
So the society is very polarized. So there's like people now have to take a to take a side, or pro or contra. So
it's hard to be in the middle.
There's like no way to be in the middle. So people, like, there's a strong group of people who were super supportive and are fighting for. But there's like, on the other hand, there's like a huge group of people who are fighting against and are like on on the government side.
And I would add that the age is not some crucial factor, because there is I don't know the numbers, but it's a bunch of young people who are ultra conservative. There is this ultra right party called Confederation in parliament. They are supported by like 11-12% of electorate, and majority of this electorate are young people. Young, I think it means under 30 years old. They are classified something like this. So age is not the factor. We cannot say that younger people are more like friendly towards LGBT. No, some of them are just opposite.
I don't know if you have anything else to go into, or do you want to go? Or?
Yeah, I can go. So Lithuania, I think we have a similar situation like in Poland. Last year was quite optimistic because we had an election to the parliament, and many liberal politicians got a seat in the parliament. One of them is a parliamentarian that I work with. So we were very hopeful to be able to present a civil union bill this year, and we did that in March, but unfortunately it wasn't passed. And so we are currently revisiting it again and plan to present it in a few months now, but we're not sure what the results are going to be. And I think Lithuania is a bit lost, it's lost in the middle right now, between like ultra conservatives and liberals, and is about to choose a path, I think, in very soon. So we have liberal politicians in power, which is amazing and good, but we also have like this very conservative president. So it's like a bit of a struggle with the balance. And there are also no protection for same-sex couples. There's a long way to go for trans rights. So I think legally we are very similar than our neighbors.
And Slovakia, I don't want to go too into depth, maybe you can ask me questions, but briefly, we have no recognition of civil unions. However, for example, we did propose civil unions a couple months ago, and of course it didn't pass. The situation, I would say cities and younger people in general are more open, and then of course there's a big group of the population that is more conservative and Christian. Unfortunately, we don't have any, I would say, true liberal parties in the parliament. So Progressive Slovakia, that I'm a member of, didn't make it to the parliament in the last elections. It was the first elections that we ran for, because we're a young party. There are some slightly more leaning towards liberal values parties, but they will never dare to propose anything. So it's kind of like stagnating. It's not going anywhere. So they will not vote for any discriminatory laws, but they will also not make any push towards more rights for LGBTI people, because it would cost them their reputation, because it divides people. So they are just, quiet about it. Yeah. So it's not going anywhere, I would say.
Yeah. Because I think Slovakia, like it was penalized to be homosexual since before the 1962, and that's very soon compared to the other countries, I think 1993, 92 for the other countries. So I was wondering why, since they had this liberal wave sooner, it didn't go actually to
many things happened in Slovakia since the 90s.
Yeah.
We had almost mafia in power, and a crumbling of the state, the judiciary system totally falling apart, and then a few drifts of pro-European governments, and more open-minded sure, but then the one that we currently have is very Christian and conservative overall. That's the ruling party is conservative Christian populist.
In Hungary.
Yeah.
So Hungary, our current government is really conservative and they say they are Christian Democrats, but they are more on the conservative radical side. In a negative way, radical.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry about the name of our party because it means extremist in
It's confusing.
Yeah, I know.
So we have civil unions for now, but they are our rights are progressively getting worse, that they're taken away. We are used as like a target by the government, like our group. They are continuously starting attacks against us with small little changes. Like this, the latest attack started with 2 years ago with, we call it paragraph 33, when they made it impossible for people to change their legal gender. So this heavily targeted transgender and intersex individuals. So they are forced to live with the gender they were assigned at birth. And the latest one was an anti-LGBT propaganda law that for once it made it a crime, washed together the LGBT community with pedophilia, and for second it made it impossible for people under 18 to see any sort of LGBT content in the media, in bookstores, anywhere. So these were the attacks against us. And we are fearing that it will get worse.
I don't know, I would like to know more about transgender people's rights, because when thinking about the LGBT community, they think about the rainbow and the same-sex people, in which not always are included also all the sexualities, so bisexuality, not much asexuality. But what about transgender right? How difficult it is to transition in these countries?
I already studied with Hungary that legally we cannot transition.
Yeah.
And they made it also challenging for any sort of other transition. Like they are, for now, we cannot be evaluated for transition either. So we cannot start hormone replacement therapy, for example.
And what about the...
So in Lithuania, it's as I said, it's a long way to go. I mean, a trans person can change their name and surname only by judge's approval. So it's this kind of system. And then, I mean, that's a lots of things to be done.
In Slovakia, you can also change your name, like that's feasible. But then there is a big discussion about like conditioning transition by like a full medical transition, and that's like still open.
And in Poland, it's possible to correct your gender, but you need to go to the court and sue your parents for wrong gender recognition. So the process is long. It's how to say it, humiliating. So and it's like it caused some problems among families, because like it's getting your to the court, and there were like people wanted to change it, but of course it's not possible with this government. They would never accept any change in that.
2015 there was a new law that passed in the parliament, and the former president signed it. A conservative president, he signed it, but then the current president, Andrzej Duda, came into power, and it was his first veto. So he basically vetoed the transgender legislation, which was a very simple thing to make life of transgender people easier. You know, there was no specific rights, extra rights there. It was just to make their transition process easier and less humiliating. But people who are in power right now, including the president, they don't get it right. I mean, for their political purposes, they easily forget about this kind of really human, very small human reflex.
Yeah, and like before 2015, we were on a good way because we had a transgender MP, and that was like she fighted for transgender people's rights like very well. But that was years ago, and now it's getting worse and worse on that.
And what about like everything you have said? Like, how could, and I would like Yuri also to answer this, like, what can the European Union do? Because, like, for example, for the Polish example, like when the European Union started to step in, like with money also, saying, I'm not giving you any money unless you start respecting these people. Something really, maybe little changed, that the zones that declare themselves like free from LGBT stop to declare themselves like that. And of course that doesn't change anything still, like there's a long way to go. But what can the European Union do to protect its own citizens? As we are not talking about China, we are talking about countries that are in the European Union and that from the European Union and from the values of the European Union take a lot of money. So what can the European Union can do if there's the political wanting of do something?
If I may.
Yeah, sure.
And I think it's more than even protecting Polish citizens or Hungarian citizens. It's also about protecting Italian citizens. Because all the stuff that's happening in our countries is happening in the European Union. And if any of Italian citizens will have an issue, in the Polish court, for example, because we are talking also about the court reform, it can as much be before your rights, because the question is, with all the changes that are happening in Poland, for example, it's like who will be closer to the ruling party, who is better connected to the party. When the rule of law is replaced by the rule of party, all our rights are being basically abolished, because then if you are a member of the party, you can win a case in the court easier. And so I think what should the European Union do? A very easy thing. Should monitor that the European Union laws and also rights are being observed. This is as easy as that. It should just like Poland entered the European Union after the referendum, when the majority of Polish population decided to join the European Union. Nobody forced anybody. Contrary, people supported it, and still now in all the public opinion polls, people support the European Union, the accession. They trust the EU more than our own government. So the EU should just do everything so that European treaties are being respected and the European values are being respected. This is as easy as that. And when we are talking about populists like Polish government, they don't understand values. They don't understand European values, full stop. They don't understand human rights. They don't understand women's rights. They don't understand minority rights. The only language they understand is money. The European Union for them is money, nothing else but money. So I think the European Union must speak also with the language of money. As you said, when they really understood that the threats from the European Union to cut the funds for the 6 regions that declare themselves the LGBT-free zones are serious, the letter came from the headquarters of the party, from the Prime Minister's office to this region saying, stop it, reverse it, because you will not get money. And if you will not get money, we will not get money to pay for all the promises, to our electorate. So I think the EU just should do everything so that the EU laws are observed, and that this kind of governments that are not respecting the laws are not able to spend the European taxpayers' money. As simple as that.
Maybe I also think like it may be, it's just a small thing, valuable or I don't know, beneficial for in general for the discourse to change the narrative of like this is not the penalties are not a punishment to Poland, right? It's not to punish Polish people, but it's to show like what the value and how much the EU values, for example, the rule of law and its core values. Like it's the opposite. It's just like a small thing, and I wonder if like maybe that would help, and how like Polish people see it as well. Like maybe if that would help the narrative in Poland. But
I think the question of the language is really important, And also, it's important to understand that this is not a conflict between Poland and Europe.
Yeah.
And it's not a conflict between Polish people and Europeans.
Yeah.
This is a conflict between the Polish populistic government and the European institutions. And again, I think it's very simple, but we cannot forget it, especially in other countries, right? Like I think other countries, Italy and other countries, should not look at it as a conflict between Polish people and European people, because I believe Polish people are not homophobic. Polish people are pro-European. The fact is that we are having this government we are having, and yes, they were chosen in democratic elections, true, but also because of the system we're having. It's not that the majority of people voted for them, far from that, far from majority, but because of the system we are having a government like that, and this government is in a heavy conflict with European institutions, and the European citizens should be with the Polish people on that. And I think, so this is one thing. And the other thing, how to do it, how to take money and not to punish the people. Yeah. There is a few mechanisms, like, you could probably give more money to local government, which is still independent in our countries. You can give more money to civil society, that is still independent from the government. You can give the money through direct administration from Brussels, right? So there are programs that actually the Commission administers the money, but you don't give cash to the populists so that they can spend the money. There is a few solutions, but then also a courage is needed. Courage is needed in the European institutions to try them for the first time. Because also, there's one thing that really worries me, is the fact that in Poland we have a new wave of Euroscepticism. Still, Poland is, according to the polls, the most Euro-enthusiastic society that we have in the EU. 90% of Polish people in the last poll last month said we are in favor of the European integration. 90%, the highest number in Europe. But there is more and more people who are more and more skeptical about the EU, and they're not the people from far right or far left. They are the people who used to be the most Euro-enthusiastic. These people are just getting disappointed with the fact that the European institutions are not doing enough to protect the human rights in Poland, are not doing enough to protect the European values, are not doing enough to protect the Polish minorities and Polish women. So this is something that I find really dangerous. That Polish people, that there is a group of Polish people who was fighting the most for the European cause. Now they are feeling the EU is not really protecting us. It's more about the budget than about the values, and this is something to be really thought about. And again, there must be something. The European institution must do something so that we feel that our rights are protected, because we see the EU as the protector of the rights.
Yeah, and that's like what you said before, like it's also about Italian citizens, about European citizens. We actually see that a lot, and we've seen that a lot in the past years, because like the first party, what is considered to be the first party now that will probably win the elections like in 2 years now, it's a far-right party, and her leader, who is Giorgia Meloni, takes picture with Orban, with the presidents of the most populist governments in Europe, and it's all about hating. It's all about hating minorities. It's all about hating LGBT community. It's all about hating Europe for not being our home. And the problem is that many people vote for them, and. So the populistic wave that we see in Europe and in Italy too is actually something that we worry about every day. We are afraid about our rights, because as we all know, the fact that you have rights doesn't mean that you will have rights tomorrow. You still have to fight for them and protect them. And we think that European Union should be a great part of the information. Nobody knows what the European Union means actually for us, economically, but also for our values and for our rights. So the campaign of information about what the European Union means, what being a European citizen means, is important. So I totally get what you're saying.
You before talking about something about the intervention about sexual education. In which kind of context you do this kind of activities? About what?
So I'm a sexual educator, and the biggest number of trainings we do is for teachers. So we teach teachers how to talk about sexual behaviors in schools, so they can do it in any occasion, but because like kids asks anyway, even though they don't have this kind of classes, so they need some knowledge anyway. So so we do those trainings for teachers and pedagogues, psychologists, psychotherapists. So we have 3 days trainings to talk to them how to do that.
So maybe because the cultural answer is the answer that we have to give to the money language probably, and the way from the way that we have to give an answer to this. In Italy is a middle class of skepticals. I don't know if you have the same class in your countries, but the cultural way is the only way that we have to protect that kind of rights that are so in difficulties.
Maybe it's also worth to add why this teaching, the trainings for teachers are so important. Maybe let's add something how the sexual education in Poland looks like because of the governmental.
The first thing is that we don't have a sexual education in schools. There's something
for us is the same.
Yeah,
we have projects.
And it's so difficult to bring it into schools. That's one of the projects we had, like trying to convince schools that they need sexual education for teachers and for students, but it's impossible basically.
Because also that's a problem because they don't understand what is sexual education.
Yeah.
Like they don't get it. It's not about sex. It's about
it's not about
relations,
sex. It's
about
emotion,
development, emotions,
yeah.
Trust, boundaries, so on.
Yeah.
So they don't get that first, and then like we don't have this kind of subject in schools. We have introduction to family life, which is like religion based and bias based. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's like the problem is I think it causes more like pain than it's like useful.
We have the same bias, and we have a sort of strange answer from people that are not agree with this kind of cultural activities, that is sexual education is a sort of gender education. So this ghost of the gender that is everywhere. I don't know if you have the same feeling, but here is impossible to have a normal conversation about sexuality, that is relation for first, and it is so incredible because you have this kind of position from people that have good cultural level, but they can't understand that talking about sexuality is talking about human. And so
rights,
human rights.
How to say no?
Yeah.
How to not be abused. Yeah.
It's very complicated to talking in a simple way. Simple, not simplistic. So it's a little bit different.
Yes, exactly. So it's very much, as you said, it's biased in Poland as well. Like conservative right-wing media, which also unfortunately include public media, associate sexual education with sexualization of children, and this is what they say. And they also associate these terms with LGBT. So, Polish media do a lot of harms, and by Polish media, of course, I mean the public and the right-wing media, public, which are basically governmental propaganda.
We have the same association between sexuality and LGBT, but we have also a big movement about linguistics and anthropologists that are trying to do something in this way. For example, I don't know if you know the sociolinguistic Vera Gano, that is from Hungary, and she created the SBA. This is a letter that is an inclusive letter that has no gender. It's a no gender letter, and we are trying to introduce this kind of letter to just to make an inclusive way to do something about the culture of sex, the culture of gender, the culture of also LGBT plus rights, that is not the same of sexuality or other.
Yeah, I don't know about your languages, but Italian is like a super gender-based language, so it's basically impossible like to not talk about like everything has friend is a girl or a boy so it's very difficult to do this with Italian. And also we did like a discussion, we took a discussion about like the sex-related words, because they all have a negative, totally negative sub-meaning. So we don't have a word to use to talk about sex that is not offensive, that is not, and so we're trying to change that, but it's a process that takes a lot of time. And yeah, talking about this would be like the first thing, but it's totally impossible.
not impossible, that's so
we tried so many times, and we live in Italy, that is considered a good country for you know, human rights, especially this city. This city is, I'm very proud to live here, because I know that people can freely live with their own necessities in every kind, and people are very supportive about it, generally speaking. But also here, for example, we work a lot with detainees, with people in jail. And jail is one of the places that is binary, totally binary. There's a thing for a girl, and the job for a girl in jail is sewing, is, you know, she cannot cook, she cannot learn things, a man can do it. So it's binary, and it's a tragic thing. But for transgender detainees, that is even worse. Like, they live in hell because they don't have a building for themselves. They live in the building that is a masculine jail, so they live with men, and they're mostly transitioning from men to women, so they should be treated in a women jail. And what happens is that many times you talk to the cops that work there, and the authorities that are the state authorities, so they should take care of the bodies, of the needs of these people, and they call them crazy queens. And many times we have to fight for the hormones to get into jail, and it's very tragic because we live in Italy, and jails, as much as any other building of the state, has a responsibility over that person. And if in jail rights are not respected, that means that out of jail rights are not respected. So when we go to the only jail we have in this region that has transgender people there, they are so happy to see us, even like when we compliment them, when we hug them, when we like, so they are seen, and that is tragic. Like, I cry every time I go out of that place because I feel that even our country is not doing enough. And yeah.
Sorry, why in Poland?
Sorry, just sorry.
I don't know, any other...
Posso fare una domanda io, se c'è tempo?
Sì, vai.
In italiano che traduce Bart.
Negli anni 70 il Partito Radicale fece da collettore a vari movimenti, dal fuori.
In the 70s, what happened is that the Radical Party was the center of a net of various movements.
Dal fuori di Angelo Pezzana, che fu il primo movimento omosessuale in Italia negli anni del 71.
Beginning from the movement called Fuori of Angelo Pezzana, which was the first LGBT...
That was born in Turin.
Yeah, that was born in Turin,
50 years
and it's
ago.
not a case, because this is a very...
Al movimento di liberazione della donna, che era federato al Partito Radicale. Quindi una crescita collettiva, si lotta insieme per migliorare insieme. Questo nei loro paesi succede o ognuno lotta per conto suo?
Cioè,
non c'è ogni movimento, c'è un'unione, cioè le donne che lottano per l'aborto legale in Polonia sono collegate a loro o sono due cose separate?
Yeah, what he's basically asking is there like a net between movements that even fight for different things but for the same thing in general? Like, for example, he made the example of the Polish women rights. Does it go along with the Polish movement for the LGBT rights? So is in your countries, is there this thing for which different movements that protect different rights actually come together in order to grow together?
Because we were asked this question yesterday. That's
Oh,
why
really?
yeah. Which is it's like interesting. I'm thinking about it now. Like, is it something very particular for Italy that Italian organizations are proud of? That it comes up twice in 2 days. So that's what I'm just wondering. That's why I'm just wondering. Like,
this is a point of pride. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
The link.
Yeah.
Between,
Yeah. Okay. Now it all makes sense. Then.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, just a quick answer. Yes, so organizations that in general fight for, like, have a different agenda, but in their ideas and values they agree. They will support each other on the different things. But yeah, I wouldn't. It's not something that would like strike my attention. So maybe it's not as dominant as it's here. It's not something I often think about, or maybe I take it for granted. I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, and then in Poland, like, you can see that on each women's strike there are rainbow flags, but also like oppressed groups, I think, should support each other. And there's like also like women's rights are also LGBT rights and other way around, right? Like we need to support each other to fight for rights, and I think that's quite obvious. And as a Projekt Polska, we cooperate with many organizations that support minorities and advocate for minorities. So we have a lot of projects with Jewish organizations, with women's organizations, like anything we can do for any oppressed people we're fighting for.
Same in Hungary.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much the same. I mean, pretty much the same as in Slovakia. So I couldn't really add anything more.
Yeah, here, like, I don't know, our party is very proud of one thing that is not considered a good thing by everybody, but we are proud of it, and it's like that we talk about the single fight. So whoever is on the side of that single fight is our friend for that single fight, and that actually works. Like, because many people and many organizations that wouldn't talk to each other directly, like, pass through us in order to be able to work together and try to win together that fight. That's why a lot of people ask that, because like although here it is very difficult, like we have a lot of different organizations that have the same goal but don't speak to each other. So they go, but if like we think that when they do talk to each other, we know it happens also with our associations, and many times two radicals exist in the same city and two radicals make a different association. So it does happen, but like when people like go and take the streets, like with thousands and thousands and thousands of people all together, like things at least try to change. Not always they do. We just didn't see, like it didn't pass a law that was proposed in the parliament, and that was going to propose the fact that like if a person is taken by attack for homophobic reason, that homophobia has to be recognized as a thing. It's not just hate, it's homophobia, and we don't have that still, and it didn't pass in the parliament. And there was this sad scene when in our parliament, so the biggest institution of the country, elected by the people, you see this middle-aged men and women doing like that, and it was sad, like the joy of something that didn't pass, and it was to like make people safer. So it was very sad. So yeah, we still have a long way to go here in our country too. And yeah.
It was the same in Lithuania when we presented the civil union bill in March and it didn't pass. Everyone stood up and started clapping. And so, you know, as someone who like helped to prepare the law and worked for it, you know, like you couldn't really say like anything, you know, like how can you not respect my work, you know? I'm not speaking about me, but you know, like people who work. So it's a terrible thing. But what I also want to say that even though we live in such a difficult region regarding the human rights, there's always hope. I mean, and I think that we will have some good changes during the next 3 years, which is left of the parliament, and we are not like hopeless. You know, we will fight till the end for
I think that the one thing that like reunites all of us is okay, it's dark, but it still can get lighter, and like we're all activists, so we all fight for that to become lighter. And I hope we will manage. Anything else?
Tutto tace.
You were over, and maybe any questions from you to them? You know a little bit the radicals already, so you might you might have some doubts from what you heard so far.
Yeah, even not questions. Like
yeah, or comments.
Posso parlare?
Another one.
Marco Pannella, il leader dei Radicali che è morto 5 anni fa, poneva il problema cioè non fare un discorso lesbica, gay, eccetera, ma il diritto della persona a essere quello che voleva, cioè non ragionare per categorie, ma partire dalla persona umana che poi ha dei diritti inalienabili. Non so, puoi chiedere se loro sono d'accordo su questo, cioè non ragionare per categorie, ma partire proprio dall'individualismo, ma individualismo nel giusto significato, cioè la persona umana e i suoi diritti.
Okay, he said that Marco Pannella, our historical leader that is now dead, but he used to say that we should not, when we think about the LGBT community, we shouldn't be thinking about categories like bisexual, like gays, like lesbians, like, so not for straight categories, but as like starting from the human person, so the human needs and the human being. And he asked if like that's something you find yourselves in, like do you agree with the idea? Or you think,
not.
Or not. Yeah. Or not.
We always say that like LGBT rights are human rights and women's rights are human rights. So like we always treat it equally. So I think that's correct.
Yeah, translating not.
No human borders.
No human borders.
Virginia, sei stata...
I'm a silent person. I don't know, because I wanted to do a more, I don't know, legal question, because I'm thinking about Article 12 of the European Charter of Human Rights, which talks about marriage. And it talks about marriage as something that men and women have the right to do. Like it's just a right for men and women to marry each other. And I wanted to ask if maybe an amendment to this article, which makes the marriage a right of the human being, as said, and not just a binary right, could also help with the LGBT fights in Eastern Europe country, and also Italy. Like starting from Europe and going to the state instead of starting from the state and going to Europe.
Of course.
No, you can go. I was just gonna give like a very short answer. Like I'm not a lawyer, and it's definitely not my field to answer this. But I can tell you what would the first reaction be.
Yeah.
The EU has no right to tell us anything in this matter.
The international law is that one. It's always that one. Yeah.
So
I am a lawyer, and I mean to change the treaties, you need permission of all the countries. So this is a no-go, because countries like Poland, and one is enough, would never agree to that. So we cannot. I mean, we cannot really think about it that way. And what is more, right now in the treaties, we see that family matters are basically the matters of the member states, and this is hard to. I think it's hard to discuss with it, and I'm not gonna say if it's good or wrong, but this is the way. This is only the family matters is the countries who can legislate. I think the only thing we can do and we should do is to push for more recognition of what's happening in other countries. Right, this is important, so that marriages. Same-sex marriages in one country would be recognized everywhere else. Yeah. This is the key, and how we can also help improve the situation of rainbow families, of transnational families, of children who are born and who are being raised in these families. This is something that I believe that European institutions can do and must do. But I'm afraid everything else that goes beyond that, it's still. I mean, it's a decision of the member states. So right now, and the changing of the treaties is obviously also the decision of the member states, and I can see it as a no-go right now.
But I'm not entirely sure now. I'm sure about the vote. But the European Parliament a couple months ago voted for a proposition exactly like to make same-sex. I think it was also for marriages that were like. Concluded in one member state, recognized in other member states.
Mm-hmm. This is exactly what I'm
then that was like voted in favor by the European Parliament, but of course, like in practice, that doesn't really mean anything for the member states.
Not legally binding. So
But like some tiny things are happening, and these are the signals that the European Parliament is sending to the member states. But
Yeah, here the point that we always make is that the only solution to this is a total sovereignty of European Union, so the United States of Europe, which is not easy at all to build, but we think that the European Union, to actually have a voice and to actually protect its European citizens, should be not 27 now. Little voices that work on their own and protect their citizens when they do on their own, but have a total upper sovereignty, which is not the state member sovereignty, but the United States of Europe sovereignty. So do you agree with that? Would you like to be part of the United States of the European Union?
Not sure about the name.
Certainly we'll have to change it.
I mean, if you ask about my personal opinion, I definitely believe in more Europe, and I would like to have more integrated Europe that functions better. Mm-hmm. So, it's not about the name for me, it's about the effectiveness.
A federation of states that actually work together, but has a law that is actually a law. So it's not that the country could actually say yes or no, or could apply it or not. So.
Yeah, so I think we're thinking in the same direction. I just guess we'll choose maybe different paths how to get there, and different names how to name it. But
the point is also that if you think that on March, European Parliament voted for the declaration of LGBTQ freedom zone in Europe. Now, for example, on March we have a law from the European Parliament that declared that. But Europe is a freedom zone, and that is not.
But I hate to be cynical, but that was even more symbolic than what passed this fall about the recognition of marriages. That was more, or I see it as more as a symbolic response to the Polish LGBT free zones, rather than as a proactive movement. Because one thing that we tried to actually do was to, when it was passing and after it passed, to implement it on the local level. So we contacted the mayor's office in Bratislava, and they are, and we have a liberal mayor. But from the office, we haven't spoken directly to him, but right from his office, they said like, nah, we need to be careful. In principle, yes, we would support it, but people wouldn't understand it. It would just be provocation. We need to be more careful. It would have maybe worked if more cities joined, like if I don't know, let's say 10, 20 cities around Slovakia joined in and declared themselves as LGBTI freedom zones. That would have then worked, but it's really hard to get those forces together if there's not public demand,
So be careful with homophobia and transphobia. Be careful.
I mean, okay, I don't want to get myself in a loop here. In my ideal world, the mayor of Bratislava would say yes and go boldly and say this is an LGBTI freedom zone.
Yeah.
But I also understand the context in which he's working, and it would just, if he declared this, it would just come out of the blue. If it was another scenario, if for example we would be having regular attacks and homophobic attacks, and he would do this as a reaction, it would already be taken with more understanding by the general public. But if he just declared this as out of the blue, I don't think it would be taken well.
No, not words.
Yeah.
Okay. But I think that for us it's not so different. So. But the context in some parts of Italy, don't think also only on Turin or in the north of Italy.
Yeah,
to think about the south of Italy is so different.
Yeah, we are a strange country. Like
no.
No. We function in different ways depending on where we are, and so also the legislation comes, but thinking about zones of Italy, not the whole. And so in some parts
it's not the same to be a lesbian in Milan or in Rome or in Turin or in Bari or in Naples. It's not the same. Because probably we are long. So
you're counted, it's the same.
You're a circle, it's the same. Okay, thank you.
Maybe I have a question to you. And what other topics does your party have on the agenda? I can see marijuana.
Oh yeah.
So I can imagine that this must be one of the topics. But what else are you advocating for?
So many things. Like the themes that I also feel the most. Yeah.
And no one
that has
old,
been
very old.
That is illegal, but that has been cultivated from one of our other members of our association in the house. Yeah, and that is a very funny thing because she's 70-something and she lives in a very good zone of the city, in a very good area, in a very rich area, and people there start to smell marijuana coming from somewhere in the building, and they changed the key locks of their own doors, saying, "Oh my God, there are little guys coming in the house just to smoke marijuana," because they couldn't believe that a 70-year-old could do that. But yeah, so we just got a big victory of one of our main themes, which is legal euthanasia, and so we don't have legal euthanasia right now, but what we are doing is trying to arrive to a referendum. Here you need 500,000 signatures, and we got to more than 1,200,000. So a huge success for Italy.
Hard work,
hard work, a lot of hard work, but a lot of success also, especially here, because we still have Vatican City there, so it is a big thing. And so we're probably going to vote for the referendum on legal euthanasia in next spring. And also there's a referendum on marijuana, so the possibility for everybody to be able to grow their own plants in their own house, even if they're not they're not sick, like if they want to smoke it. So those are the two big successes of this year. And then on LGBT themes, we are now we want a law for marriage of same-sex couples, because we have civil unions, but as you all know, civil unions are not the same as saying marriage. And here we still have a lot of, like, people don't talk about it, even like the liberal parties here, like the Democratic Party, that is theoretically like totally on board with this, but doesn't really talk about it, doesn't really promote things on this. And also for adoptions, because we would like for single people and also for not married people of any couple, any family to be able to have babies. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. So can single person adopt?
No, it's illegal. But what we would like
only
is
married couples.
Yes, only married couples. And so
you can have a sort of
stepchild. Stepchild.
Like
you can have it
when you are single.
Yeah. So we would like for people to be able to adopt it, like 25 years old, more, but like even if you're single, even if you are with another girl, boy, it doesn't matter. Like.
But do you also need a referendum for these decisions to be
No, like
passed?
the problem here is okay. So referendum here can only cut parts of the laws. You cannot promote something new, which is a kind of problem, because you have another way to try to give like suggestions of laws to the parliament, but our parliament doesn't discuss them. So they remain there for 2 legislations, which means 10 years, and then they just disappear. So basically the parliament leaves them there to die and doesn't discuss them. So the only way that we can actually like do something is by referendum. But the referendum only cuts parts, so you can basically go to referendum only when you have a law that says this is forbidden, and so you apply the referendum to cut the part that says it's forbidden. So it's kind of complicated. The same with euthanasia. We had a lot of problems because there's not a law that says euthanasia is not legal. There are many parts in our civil code, in our penal code, that said it's illegal, but without saying it. So it's basically, it was very, very difficult for us to write something about it. And we have we are a lot on the rule of law and democracy and its values and European Union. So everything that is related to the every human right and political right. So for example, press freedom. So for example, our main theme all the time. And what we like is not thinking only about Italy, because we think as a whole in the past. In the past, we were the big transnational party, and now we are divided, but still, she was arrested in Laos. I don't know if the name of the country is the same. Yuri was arrested in Russia. He was arrested in Russia.
I'd like to go to jail.
Yeah. I was in Hong Kong following the protest because here the news didn't tell anything about that. It was a simplistic way of telling things that are actually complicated, and we think that everything that is happening in our world against human rights, political rights and civil rights is actually a change of history that we are part of, and so we should take care of all those things.
And last Saturday we have made
we were in front of the Polish
in
consulate.
front of the Poland consulate, non so come si
Yeah.
dice,
For
women rights
Yes.
in Turin, in Milan and in Rome.
Nice. We were all on the march, on the protest against what's happening. So
Then we have
great.
We had some activities for Belarus.
Belarus.
Non mi ricordo perché, vabbè, Hong Kong.
China, Russia, Afghanistan. Every time there's something happens, we are over there. We don't sleep at night.
But it's great to know that you are there, because I was thinking that these people who gather all over Europe in front of Polish embassies and consulates are only the Poles living abroad, but so it's.
Yeah,
so
here is trying to take also the communities that live here, like, because of course they are the people that actually are more motivated to join in and to fight here, but normally we contact the communities of the countries, but we organize like non-violent protests, like or any kind of initiatives that we think it can help. Normally it can't, because like there's not much that we can do, but being present and trying to put pressure on the media here in order for them to be present also, because Italian people, they don't know what is happening outside of their country many times. Like for us to be able to get informed for what is happening in the United States, here in China, we have many times to be translating things from other newspapers from other countries. So it is actually very difficult to get informed and get the information of what is actually happening in other countries. And so we try to put that pressure on the media for them to cover us doing that protest for somebody else.